welcome to this week's EdTech Tuesday video. This week we're going to be focusing on Google's My Maps. This is a great feature where you and your students can create maps with markers, links to additional information, calculate distances, and do lots of other really great things with maps. To get started, go to google.com/mymaps. When you open the page, you'll come to a screen that looks like this. You can click on the bottom where it says Take a Tour, and it will show you all the different features of My Maps that I'm going to be showing you in this video. To start your own map, you'll have a blank one that's been created, and you can just click on the title to change the title of the map. My example is going to be a map of my vacation this last summer. You can add a title and you can add more information about it. And when you're ready, you just click Save. You have several features that you can play with. You can pan the map with the little hand. You can drop a pin. You can draw lines or shapes. And you can also search for places to add to your map. You can add pins to your map. You can change the style and content of your map, the different layers of your map. Another feature is that I can share, collaborate, or embed my map, which will be helpful later when you want your students to share their own maps with you. So we'll come back to that feature at the end. With each layer of your map, you can import information to go with it. So if your students have been writing a report on a particular location and you want them to attach it to their map, then that would be the way that they could import it from their Google Drive. With each layer, you can also rename it, you can delete it, or you can open a data table which shows you all the different information. At the bottom of this box, you'll see the base map, and the base map can change. So you'll see as I click on each one what the different options are. You can get satellite feed, you can get different colors and layers over the top. The information may change just slightly depending on what it is that you want your students to see. So you can designate to them if they have to choose a particular style of map if they're creating their own. But I'm just going to go with this default one here at the beginning. So to add information to my map, to add locations, I'm going to zoom in and go to a particular place. I'm going to start my trip in San Francisco, which is where I started my trip last summer. And I zoomed out just a little bit because it'll make the next part easier. But to add a pin to my map, I'm going to click on that little dot with the point at the bottom, and I can add my pin to my map, and then I can title it whatever I want to call it. And I'm going to write a description of where I started my trip. I can also add pictures to this. So I'm going to click on the picture, and you can see you can do a Google image search. So I'm going to search for San Francisco Airport, and it will give me a Google search, and I found one that I like. So I'm going to click on that one, and I'm going to click to insert it in my pin. So now there it is, there's my picture, and I'm going to hit save. So now when I click on that pin in the future, that picture will show up. So I flew from San Francisco to Minneapolis, Minnesota, so I'm going to click again on the pin marker, and I'm going to put a pin right there, and I'm going to label it, add my description, and then I'm going to add a picture, just like I did with San Francisco. In Minneapolis, I'm going to look for a specific landmark. And when I found a version of it that I like, I'm going to insert it again. And there it is, attached to my pin. Now another thing I can do is I can add lines to my map to show paths or directions. So since I'm flying, I don't need to have any specific markers along the way. You'll notice that I have options of driving routes, biking routes. So you could have students do driving routes and it will only do through roads, but I'm just drawing a regular line. To end the line, you'll see here I have the line going up there at the top. To end my line, I had to hit enter, and I didn't do that, so I have to redo my line. So you click from one destination to the other, and then you hit enter, and it will save it, and then you can label it. So I am going to do that. Label my line. Now I forgot to save it, so now it's still called line 3. But before we go and fix that later, I'm going to show you another feature, and that's that little measure there at the top. And when you click on the measure and you go from one distance to the other, it tells you how many miles it is. So now I'm going back to adjust my line 3 and return it to my other information. I'm going to edit it. And now I can add my length of information. So how many miles I traveled, I can see that on my map right there. So I'm going to hit save. Google My Maps will also measure area. So one way you can do that is to find a place that you want students to measure. So let's say I want them to measure the square area of Nevada. So I am going to click on that measurement tool again, and instead of just drawing a line from one place to the other like I am there on the top border, I'm just going to keep clicking a whole bunch of different plot points along the edges of the border of Nevada. And I'm going to keep going all the way around the state of Nevada, and when I get back to the beginning of the line, it's going to change from a plus to a hand, and when I click on that, it's going to give me the perimeter and the area of that state. So that is a great way to demonstrate to students the idea of perimeter and area using Google My Maps. You can change some of the other features of your map. If you click there on the right, you'll see that little paint can, and you can change the color of your pin. So my pin just changed from red to green. You can also change the shape of your icons. So there's a whole bunch of different ones in here. Students find it fun to choose something different. And if you wanted them to mark certain places on the map, like let's say you're doing 4th grade California history and you want them to mark all of the missions with a cross, and maybe political or government locations with some other kind of building, then you can do that with these different things. So they can mark different locations with different icons. Now for my students to share this with me, they'll need to click on that share button there in the middle of the box on the left, and you'll see that they can change this document just like they would any other Google document. So they can share the link with you, but they'll also have to change the access. Notice that it says private. The easiest way to do that is just to click on anyone with the link can view and save that, and then they can send you the link. They can also put your name down there in the box and invite you. Type your name in the box down here at the bottom. Just like I'm typing this name here, I could share my map with Isabel if I wanted to and give her the right to edit it, or I could change that right as well. So when I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and save this or click out of it. And then basically that's my map. So just to show you a couple of other things, interesting features about this from a teaching perspective, if you use that measurement or the lines, you'll notice something interesting happens. Let's say I'm going to go from San Francisco over to Mongolia. You'll notice that the line curves with the curvature of the Earth, and it takes the most logical flight path. So when that happens, you'll notice that it adjusts for that every time. So that's an interesting science lesson to teach your students about how, even though this is a flat map, that we have a round world, and that affects the distance as we travel over a period of miles around the Earth. It changes our distance and the curvature of our flight path. One other interesting feature about this is if you go back to that hand tool and you start sliding the map around, you'll see that it won't stop. It will go as if you're spinning a globe. It will continue cycling through the whole map, and the map doesn't end. So that also can be helpful in conveying that concept of our world continuing or going around in this way. You'll notice if you go to your Google Drive that it has been saved in your Google Drive, so your students have a copy of this. I just went to my recent folder and you'll see that it's right there. It's saved in my Google Drive as a map, just as you would with any other Google document. And that covers Google My Maps. I hope you can find a lot of great uses for this in your classroom, even if it's just demonstrating it for your students. Thanks for watching this week's video.